Today's March 16th, 2015, and we're interviewing Robert Shipp of the Union Fire Company. And want to ask you some questions about the fire company. And just to clarify, we do have your permission to tape the interview.
Yes.
Okay, great. Bob, how old are you?
I'm 67 right now. I'll be 68 May 30th.
Okay. And when did you join the Union Fire Company?
Union Fire Company, November of 1963.
1963. Okay. And are you from Carlisle originally, or?
Yes.
Okay.
I was born and raised in Carlisle.
Okay. Whereabouts?
Actually, I was, the first 2 years I was on the earth, I lived out at Cave Hill,
Okay.
out there along the creek.
Okay. And then,
My dad used to rent off the old chief of police out there. His name was Chief Strock.
okay. And then moved into Carlisle, or?
Yeah, we moved around a little bit, and then we ended up. We lived down at my grandmother's down on 47 Northeast Street.
Okay.
Down there was a stone house down there.
Okay. And how'd you become interested in being a volunteer firefighter?
Well, actually, it started I used to help delivery men from Harrisburg Dairies deliver milk in town. And one weekend, they had a fire up here on I think it was Hanover Street, second floor, I believe it was. And we stopped, and and that was the start of it. And then there was a gentleman by the name of Bill Morrow.
Okay.
His dad was a member of the Union Firehouse, and so was he. Well, he was talking about this firehouse, and they were talking about having junior membership at that time, and you had to be 16 years old. And so I signed up, and I was voted into the company. And I even got the first night I walked down to the firehouse, and they let me sit in the rest of the meeting after I was voted in.
Okay.
So that really was the start of it all, I guess.
Okay.
More or less.
Okay. And you worked for the borough for most of your career, correct?
Yeah, I have 39 years in with the borough of Carlisle. I started out as vehicle maintenance out at the Hanover Street garage, and then I worked down at the old sewer plant, and also helped with the setup and construction of what we call the new plant, which is down in Middlesex now. And then I worked at the water plant for about a year and a half as assistant superintendent over there. And then I got taken over to Parks and Recreation, where I ended up having to take care of all the parks and all the building facilities in the borough.
Okay.
And that's where I finished up at.
Okay, because at one time there were quite a few people who worked for the borough were active in the fire company too.
Yes,
as I
they
recall.
were. Yeah.
And I didn't know if that might have been how you got involved, or.
No, it was even earlier than that. That was, I got involved actually even before I went in the service.
Okay. Okay. How active were you in the fire company?
Well, I was quite active for a number of years. I figured my active time probably ran from about 63 all the way up to 98 is when I retired from the guard, and I figured it was just time. I was 52, somewhere around there, and I figured I'd retire from everything. So that's what I did.
Okay.
So.
Did you ever live at the firehouse?
Oh yeah. When I was single, when I was home, even when I was home on leave, I usually spent most of my time at the firehouse. I slept in and ran calls and everything like that.
What was that experience like?
Oh wow, it was great, really. Usually, lots of times at night, when we had the old game well system. Well, the air pipe for the old bullhorn on top of the fire station, that ran right in behind the walls in the bedroom, and we knew exactly if you were a light sleeper, well, you could hear the air coming up on the first honk or the first number or whatever, and usually we were down ready to go by the time the driver came over.
Okay. Do you remember anybody from that period of time? Who else lived there?
Well, Jack Myers was in there, Junior Sherman, I'm trying, Bill Blinker Adams was in there,
Okay.
Bob Wise was in there. I'm just trying to think. That's some of the ones. I think old Ross Kramer was even up there at that time.
What was it like around the firehouse then?
Well, it was more social than it is today. When you go to the firehouse, back then, you played checkers or cards. We played a lot of pinochle, or we'd shoot pool downstairs or something like that, or just sit around, drink coffee and smoke cigarettes and shoot the breeze,
Okay.
or talk about the last fire and stuff. That's how we actually got a little bit of training, even though we weren't doing any training. We were still getting the education. What should we have done? What should this person done? And that was talked about, just in discussion over coffee and cigarettes in the morning.
Okay. So a lot of storytelling.
Oh, a lot of storytelling. But really, when you sit down and you look at it, hindsight now, that storytelling, you picked up on a lot of things just by talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that was maybe a primitive way of training at one time.
Okay. Did you have training those
We
days?
had some, like on a Saturday or something like that. We would maybe go out and do a little training, but it wasn't like as intense as it is today.
Okay. So a lot of it was on the job training and.
Yep. As a matter of fact, my first job period was, I was told, Sam Otten was the chief at that time. He said my spot was in the rear on the tailboard, which tailboards no longer exist, but that was our job to make sure we got the water. And he says, even though you're as dumb as an idiot, he says you got the most important job. You got to get water to the engine. So.
That was kind of the beginner's job then, I guess. And,
Yep. As a matter of fact, myself and Bob Wise used to run competitions, see how fast we could get water to the engine.
Okay.
And one time he'd hit the hydrant, next time maybe I'd hit the hydrant. So.
Okay. And what was it like to ride on the rear step or the tailboard of the engine?
Bumpy.
Okay.
Yeah, you had to get the experience to bend your knees a little bit and act like a shock absorber back there, and of course the streets weren't the greatest even back then, but still in all, it was a little different back there than it was on the side compartments or up front.
Right. Did you wear protective equipment then, or?
Well, no, that came a little later as things started to change in the fire department, and it started more from getting away from the social club and getting into doing more training and everything like that. And of course the safety aspect really started to pick up back then, and they started making us wear gear and stuff before we got on the engine, before we left. And that was even if we were just going for fuel or something like that. They always wanted, if you're going to be on the outside like a tailboard or some of the side compartment areas, they wanted you to have gear on.
Okay. How was that received, and how did that go over those changes?
Well, you know how it is as well as I do. Everybody was opposed to change, at that time. Of course, they still do it today. When you want to change something, it takes almost an act of Congress to get it done. But they eventually, overall, as the ones that were really hard-nosed about it and were against it, they kind of faded away, and some of us took it with a grain of salt and went along with the system and the program, and it's proved out quite well, and it's worked quite successfully throughout the years as it built on.
So there were some people left as a result of the new rules and the change. And
There was a few of us that stayed on, and then there was some of I ain't putting up with that stuff. I come there, to play cards or whatever and shoot pool, and if they want me to go fight fire, well, if they're gonna make me stay behind because I don't have gear on, well, that's the way it goes.
Okay.
So eventually, them kind of people, they just kind of faded away, and they really didn't, as far as I was concerned, didn't have the fire department at heart anyway.
Okay. What did you enjoy most from the fire company? What kept you there? What made you go in every day? Or
I guess at first it was the red lights and sirens, but the activity around there and the camaraderie of of everybody that came through the door, basically. And of course, everybody was, it wasn't, hello, how are you doing today? It's, what are you doing here? You know, they harass you as soon as you come in the door. And if you didn't take that, you know, why, that was something that you had to put up with. And if you didn't, a lot of people left because they got harassed. And it didn't bother me. I enjoyed what I did and the service I was giving to the public and to the community.
Okay. Do you remember any practical jokes?
Oh, not that I know of right offhand. There was enough of them floating around, but the one we should have here is probably old Danny Hodge.
Okay.
He used to come in every morning, and he always told a joke.
Okay.
And he worked up at Dickinson College. He was I forget what he was. He took care of one of the frack houses up there. But he retired from the college. But he used to go up at the newsstand, get his paper every morning. He'd come down and we'd sit inside there, and they'd yak a little bit in the mornings. And Danny would always come up. He'd just have the right time to insert his little joke, and then he'd roll his paper up and he'd go on his way. But he was one that stopped in the mornings, and John Dicer and of course Merle or old Charlie Jacobs was driving at that time.
Okay. But Dan Hodge, was he a member of the fire company?
I think he was an honorary member. I think they made him an honorary member of the Union Fire Company.
Okay.
Yeah, he was something else.
Okay. And he was a black man?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
Yep. Very nice person, too.
Okay. Was there anything you didn't enjoy? Anything that some days maybe wore on you a little bit or challenged you? Or
Over my years, usually the bad stuff, if I'd hear it, I'd take it with a grain of salt and move on and didn't leave it bother me as far as that goes. You know, I really overall, I never really had a bad time.
okay.
There was days that were maybe a little challenging, but that I thought things should have went better or something like that, but that's my personal opinion. And in an organization like that, it's a happy compromise that gets everything done, not one person's opinion.
What do you think holds a group like that together? Because there's a lot of different people and a lot of different opinions, and how does that?
Well, but we're everybody's working for a common goal, and that common goal is protect the lives and property and helping the community and doing whatever they can do to make things better for the community as a whole. And that's one of the reasons why I think that does that. And everybody seems to get along very well together, and we help each other and help everybody else that we can. And we do that through the fire service.
Okay. Good. What was the most interesting call you ever went to? Does anything stick out in your mind?
I guess I guess it could be interesting. It could have been maybe one of my worst calls that I was driving. It was I guess it was a Saturday or a Sunday. I don't know. Down on Burnhausen Bridge Road, we had an old schoolhouse off. It was down there around Country Gardens now or something like that. Country Manor.
Country Club?
There was a big trailer.
Country Manor.
Country Manor. It was on Burnhausen Bridge Road, but it was it was on the right hand side going out there. Anyway, a guy by the name of Charlie Alderman was going in this second floor window, and the engine started dying down, and I was pulling the throttle out, and nothing was happening. The engine kept dying down, and it finally quit. And the only thing I was doing was screaming, "Get him out of there," because I knew he was inside with a charged hand line. And of course, we tried, and here we found out it was a pump problem, and the bearings had seized up in either the pump or something that affected the pump. Because after we took the pump out of gear, the engine started right up, had no problems. The motor So we had to put it out of service for a while. But that was the most, I guess the most interesting, I don't know if you want to call it interesting, but it was the most challenging day that I ever had as far as I can remember.
Because you were worried about Charlie and the
Oh,
building.
I was more worried about Charlie and that engine when it died down like that because I knew he wasn't getting water.
And he was okay then? And
Yeah, we got him out and everything worked out well, so.
what would you think was the most dangerous call you were ever on? Was there anything sticks out there?
Well, there was, I guess about the worst as far as dangerous goes, or I thought was dangerous, was one Saturday evening. It wasn't real late, I guess, maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Donnie Bishop and I think, were the only ones in the station. Or Doug was there. No, Doug Kellett was there too, and so was Joe Bishop, I believe. But anyway, we got a call of explosion and fire up on West Lawler Street. At that time, they used to call it West Lawler Street Extended. It was right past Orange Street there. Now you go up over the little knob after you get it past Orange Street there, and down the hollow was a house and looked like a garage attached to it. Well, as soon as we turned the corner to head out Lawler Street there, we reported back to the comm center that we got heavy smoke showing from the station. So we went over and I was just getting ready to pull into the driveway, and Doug and Joe and them were ready to step off the engine, and all I seen was this wire hanging down in front of the engine, and I slammed the brakes on. I thought sure it was high tension wire because of the explosion and stuff, and I threw Doug and them off the. I think Doug McKillop was one of the assistant chiefs at that time, and almost threw him off there. But everybody made it out okay, and we worked out in here. We found out later it was just the cable line going across.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't know if it was high tension because the only thing I could think of is energizing that whole engine, with the high voltage. But it worked out well again.
Okay. How about what was the worst call? Do you have anything that you recall as the worst call, or when it really bothered you? Anything that?
No, I don't. Right offhand, I don't. Usually, you never remember the worst calls.
Right.
There was probably some that were better than others, but I always look at it this way: every call was bad if you really want to sit down, especially when there was property or lives involved in it. That's probably the worst calls.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you want to call it the worst call, it was one of the first fatality I ever was on. I remember that. That was over back off of Northwest Street. There was a bunch of garages. There's a tot lot that the Carlisle owns, and that was at it borders West A, Pitt, and Lincoln Street. It's in that in back there.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the name of the alley, but I can't. I don't know if it's I don't know if they call that Lincoln Avenue or not back there. But anyway, there was a little shack back there, and there used to be a bunch of old weatherboard garages back there. And this was the first fatality I was ever involved in. And old Merle Nace was driving around that corner. I didn't think there was a utility pole set right on the front, and with the old LaFrance, the 61 we had. I didn't think he was going to make it, but we made it around the corner. And we got back there, and we got the fire out and everything. And here we found this old wino that lived in like about a 2 or 3 room house back there. It was weatherboard. Well, he must have been trying to fill his space heater up when it was when it was still burning, and apparently spilt some stuff, fuel all over it or something like that, and set the whole place off. And we found him right there, and we had to bring him out. But that was my first fatality that I was ever on. I guess they could say that's probably about the worst I ever was involved in.
How did the guys handle that then afterwards? How did you Did you talk about it, or did you just kind of?
Hey, he's gone. You just picked it up and moved on. It was just, we tried to do it back in them days. It was just another fire call.
Right.
Just had a fatality. We didn't have the problems. I guess, I don't know. Maybe we were a little rougher, a little more callous to them things back then than they are today with the way everything goes.
Mm-hmm.
But I never seen anybody have any after effects, and sure didn't, it didn't affect me that much. So.
You said you were in the military?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was on active duty with the Air Force from 65 to, I went in June of 1965, and I got out. I got discharged in November of 1972.
Okay.
And then I was out 12 years and went back in 1984 and retired in 1998.
Were you able to keep in touch with the firehouse while you were in the
Yeah,
service?
I was usually when I come home, and when I was on active duty, I'd come home for 30 days. Well, I spent, like I said, pretty much all my time at the firehouse.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd go home in the mornings and take a shower and everything, go down to Harrisburg and catch my plane or wherever I had to go with the military. So
Did they keep in touch with you while you were in the service?
yeah, there was like in the holidays and things like that, I'd usually get cards and one. The one I did get that I guess I enjoyed the most, and it's over in the museum over there now. I had to put in the museum over there. They sent me a Christmas card from when I was over in Vietnam, and that was in 1970.
Okay.
So that was pretty good to receive something like that.
So you're still part of the family.
Ah, yeah.
Were you around when Vince died in the accident?
I was actually stationed. That was 68,
69.
69. I was over, and that was what?
August.
August of 69. That's would have put me. I think that happened when I was still over in Germany, I believe.
Okay.
And I couldn't get home or anything like that. But yeah, I spent time over in Germany, and I believe that's when that happened.
So you stayed active even after you got married, and your wife was supportive of the firehouse, and
Oh yeah, she finally got involved in. Then they got that ladies auxiliary going, and my mother was involved in that, and so was my wife. So that was a big thing for the longest time, and that was pretty good for a while. So
and you still keep in touch with the fire company and are involved.
well, I try to be involved, or if I'm asked to do something, or they need some help from somewhere, why sure, all they have to do is pick the phone up, and I'll be glad to help out. That's not a problem.
And you still go to the annual banquets and
Yeah, I go to the annual banquets and everything. I think that's one of the greatest things there is.
And did you see many changes while you were in the firehouse, in the fire service?
Oh yeah, quite a bit overall, going from basically a social club up to the standards they have now and the training they have now. Even when just in the military alone, there was a lot of changes. I was in vehicle maintenance when I was on active duty, and then when I went in the guards in '84, I went into the fire department, or crash, fire, and rescue, and you could see a whole gamut of changes over the years and stuff from the fire service in general.
How so? What changed? You think it got better or different or worse or?
I think it got better because, first of all, the training is, and the safety factor is I think is proven, improved, say 1,000%. You might as well say, because of all the changes of wearing the gear and then getting people off of tailboards and things like that, to where everybody's inside the vehicle and things like that. And of course the upgrades and techniques and things like that they use today versus what we used years ago.
Okay. And you said you had a son?
Yes, my son's retired from the Air Force too. So.
Okay, but he never joined, did he join the fire company?
No, never interested. He's a big security man, so
Okay, okay.
so he does a lot of computer work. He's that's what he does. It's just like my oldest grandson. He flies for the Air Force, so and his wife flies for the Air Force too. And my youngest one, he's going through school right now out in Monterey, California, to be a linguist. So it's a happy thing, but you know, the fire service wasn't their bag, so it was a little different ball game.
I'm sure you had him around the firehouse a time or two.
Oh yeah, we got pictures of them and all that stuff, but it's never caught on for them.
Okay.
So
it seems to be something that you either get or you don't get, I guess. And
oh yeah, it's something you got to really dedicate yourself to, because it's like, you know, the paratrooper. You know, you say, why do you jump out of perfectly good flying aircraft? Well, it's like a firefighter. You know, why do you go? You're outside in a safe zone. Why do you go into danger? You know, when everybody else is running out the door, you're running in. So basically, that's how I compare that. You know, you're doing something that the body naturally doesn't do.
right. And what's it like when you go in a burning building?
To me, well, it just depends on what it is. There's a lot of heavy smoke. It's hot until you get to where the seat of the fire's at, and and you have to get lower and lower to get to see where you're going. To me personally, some have been good, some have been really difficult to fight.
And how do you find your way around in those
I
circumstances?
usually crawl. I'm hands and knees, and I was always taught to do a right-handed search, even though I'm left-handed, so I had to overcome that too.
Okay.
But overall, all the training and the people that I've worked with, I've always had good experience. I'd always had good people teaching me.
Who would you say taught you the most in the fire service when you were young?
Well, I don't. They all did. Like I said, just sitting around shooting a breeze, you know, that they were all good teachers. To be truthful with you, I mean, I did a lot of training in my time, even in the military, you know, and I was on hazmat teams and things like that. I've had training from EPA. I've had Air Force training, and now it's all DOD. It's basically they're trying to consolidate everything. So they have a big school down in Goodfellow, down in San Angelo, Texas. Now I was down there 3 times while I was in the guards to different schools, and everywhere you go, you always learn something. And if you don't learn something, you shouldn't be there. Or you might as well just lay down and die. That's the way I always looked at it. I always tried to, you know, pick something out or get something out of everything I went to. Even back in years when we had the training, you know, all you got was a certificate of attainment, you know, which never really meant a whole lot at the time. But to me, it still does, because if you go there and you pay attention and you do what they're trying to tell you or what they're trying to teach you, you'll pick something up and it'll stick with you. Even though it is in your subconscious, it'll still stick with you.
Okay. As we wrap up, is there anything else that comes to mind that you want to tell about the fire service or your time at the union? And
To me personally, it's been a great experience. If it wouldn't have been for the Union Fire Company, why, shoot, I probably would never even thought of the fire service. And even today, it'd probably be, well, who are they? You know. But I'm glad I got into it at a very young age, and like some of the other guys over there. Well, I guess maybe we did see the best of the fire service. The biggest changeover, I guess, is if you look at it that way, because we went from riding just street clothes to having gear on and being prepared and ready to go, and thinking about what you want to do when you get there and how you want to attack the problem. So, but that's basically what I have to. The fire service to me has been great.
Okay. Great. I appreciate your time and willingness to let us talk to you and record it and
Not a problem.
make it part of a permanent record
All
here.
right.
Thanks,
Good
Shipp.
enough. Yep.